This video is a Patreon request from Silvershot AMV. Welcome back to the Many Toys Of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters. And today, it is time to talk about one of the breakout stars of IDW, a traitor, a warrior, an honorable man, a religious man, and a lieutenant of a doomed spaceship, Drift. Before we begin, a big thank you to Aneurysm, Baku Life 15, Andrea Enriquez 7257, The TF Reviewer, Kabaskipel, Samurai Drift, Reptosaurus King 8494, Heavy Iron 3016, and Dino Something. Thank all of you for recommending Drift, and one more colossal thank you to Silvershot. If I had to describe Drift, it would be a character that was at one point inconsistent until that became his character. When he first arrived in All Hail Megatron, he was just another one of the Wreckers, a silent warrior brooding type, very much in the vein of Samurai Jack. And even though there were other writers that would touch him over the years to come, most of them kept him exactly the same. It wasn't until we got to James Roberts and More Than Meets the Eye where we got a new Drift, a Drift that was highly religious, spiritual, and that came from a near-death experience he had suffered. Now, he was attempting to atone for his past as a Decepticon, becoming incredibly entrenched in many philosophical ideas and being used as a little bit of a comedy, until he was kicked off the Lost Light. It was in the Empire of Stone miniseries, where Ratchet tracked Drift down, that we finally understood why is Drift so different between writers. It was a retcon, but it was a good one. Drift doesn't really know who he is anymore. When he was Deadlock, it was simple. He was a bottom rung. He was just one more cog in a machine. He thought that the Decepticons were core to his identity. But as it turns out, he wasn't a Decepticon. He became an Autobot, and yet never felt at home with them either. Drift takes on different personas just because he doesn't really know who he is anymore. He just wants to feel like he belongs. He wants to feel connected, like people respect him, that people could like him even. And after he was able to form a relationship with Ratchet, he started to get that love and that self-confidence that he so desperately desired. In many ways, Drift is incredibly interesting in just how human that is. You look at him, and he feels like just a generic action bot. But there's more to him than you would think. He is someone just trying to make his way in the universe, and he would like to know that he meant something, that he was someone. Not a star, not an icon, but just more than a cog in the machine. Funnily enough, Drift is actually an older character than most people would think. He first appeared in 2003 as the Japanese name for Dirt Boss, a minicon. He was a member of the Burning Rubber minicon team and wasn't all that remarkable. It wasn't until 2010 that the Drift that we would currently think of when we hear the name was first published, and he got a toy very early in the Generations line. I'm going to say this now. This might be one of the greatest figures Generations ever did. The car mode is just beautiful, striking, tasteful. Even though I'm not big on the fact that the kanji on his door literally just means drift, there's no denying that the car mode is just lush. Once he transforms, which by the way that transformation is incredible, you get an incredibly well-articulated Autobot. One that can dual-wield swords. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Even better, he doesn't just have 3 swords, he also has holsters for those swords, popper sheaths, and he has the articulation to remove those swords from his sheaths. The articulation is an absolute delight, all topped off with an incredible head sculpt and a very well-proportioned body. Even though many people weren't too keen on Drift when he was first released in the comics, the toy did a ton to usher in goodwill towards Drift. And all these years later, it's one of the most sought-after figures from the entire Generations line. The United Drift released that same year was even more beautiful. That pearlescent white makes me scream. In 2012, Timelines would use the Drift mold to make Shattered Glass Drift. I adore the color scheme on this car as well. It actually invokes the Japanese Imperial flag, which I think is really cool. Once he transforms, the red's not quite as striking as the white, But the reason he's red is because, at that time, Drift was still a stoic, very quiet warrior. The opposite of that would be a talkative mercenary, and Shatterglass Drift was directly inspired by Deadpool, especially Deadpool as he was written in that era. I want you guys to consider something real quick. Drift had been around for about 4 years, he had appeared in the comics, had only 3 toys to his name, and then he was turned into one of the main characters of Age of Extinction. Think about how insane that turnaround is. That's like near lockdown levels. That said, Age of Extinction Drift was really dicey. Don't get me wrong, Ken Watanabe is an incredible actor, but they had him speak almost exclusively in haiku. Drift, thematically, had always had a great deal of Japanese inspiration. He had a very samurai-esque design, he had the kanji, but they took that and you really leaned into it. Right down to there being a lot of jokes at the expense of Drift's implied racial identity. I'm just saying, when you start having a guy walk around calling Optimus Prime Sensei, you might be taking the bit a bit too far. Even still, the design was cool, and the first way you would be able to get that design in toy form was in the one-step changer range. You'd be able to get that same toy in better paint in Japanese markets. Hell, if you want to go for the trifecta, there's a third version of One Step Changer Drift that was included in the Age of Extinction collection pack alongside Grimlock, Lockdown, Bumblebee, Slug, and Silver Knight Optimus Prime. The gimmickry continued for the Flip and Change Drift, and man is he top heavy. The Power Battler's Drift is really interesting. A one-step changer, and if you squeeze the legs, he'd be able to swing his swords around. Plus, both the car and the robot look really solid. Hey, did you remember that Bayverse Drift was a triple changer? 'Cause I didn't! He apparently does turn into a helicopter sometimes, though. And hey, triple changers are hard to make, which is why we just got a second version of the one-step changer Drift that turned into the helicopter. You could get the same toy in the Final Battle 4-figure set, included alongside Silver Knight Optimus, Galvatron, and Slug. There was the Autobot Drift and Dinobot Slug Dino Sparkers. This thing shot out sparks. It set someone's carpet on fire. Creo hit the ground running. You could get a Creon Drift that came with a buildable slug. You could get the custom Creon Drift that would have chromed out pieces and give you more customization options. You could have also gotten the Silver Knight Autobots pack that would have included a more blue Drift. Going from one LEGO knockoff to the next, Constructbots would have given you the Dinobot Rider Drift, a very squat-looking kid. You could have also gotten the Drift with Roughneck. What the hell is Roughneck? Hero Mesher Drift looks weirdly good. Like, he doesn't even look like a Transformer, that just looks like a cool samurai toy. Titan Heroes Drift also doesn't look like a Transformer, but it also doesn't look that much like a cool samurai either. Okay, what the hell is the Funko Pop Drift? That doesn't look like a Drift or a Transformer or a samurai. That looks like someone's weird fetish gear. All jokes aside, when people think about the 2014 Drift, they tend to think of the deluxe toy. And overall, it's solid. A good transformation, really well done articulation, even the swords are a nice little addition. The head sculpt is great, and I love the shades of blue. The only issue is, the Age of Extinction toys across the board just lacked paint. This Drift was a massive step down from the Dark of the Moon toys, not in terms of the quality of the toy, but the paint, the presentation were sharply lacking. Of course, you could have always popped over to Karatomi markets and gotten a way better looking Drift. I think Hasbro kinda knew they went too far with the paint scale back, which is why they did the BBTS exclusive Autobots United set. It came with Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Crosshair's Hound, and of course a Drift, and they were all far more screen accurate. Here's the weird thing though. So remember what I said earlier about the fact that Drift is a triple changer and he does have a helicopter mold. Well, they wanted to have a helicopter Drift, but Hasbro didn't want to design the first Bayverse triple changer. So they just brought a different helicopter mold in. Specifically Skyhammer from Dark of the Moon. This was a really good mold, but it doesn't really work for Drift. It's a great looking toy. I love the blue and the gold, and the samurai helmet really gives this guy a unique feeling. It's just I don't know, it's a bit too bulky for Drift. The Takara Tomy mold doesn't fix much in terms of the character, but the additional paint just makes it look even better. Say what you will about Age of Extinction, they pumped those toys out, man. I think right now is where I want to take a little break and pop into third party. There's not been many Drifts, but it's always fun to see what other companies did with these characters. The first third-party Drift I remember seeing was the Mastermind Creations Stray. Mastermind Creations always nail these IDW designs, and I adore Drift. It looks just like he did in the early issues of The Lost Light. His bulky shoulders, his very sharp head sculpt, the swords are incredible. I just love this guy from head to toe. Of course, when people talk about MMC Drifts nowadays, they're probably talking about a different guy. We'll get to him in a minute. The company Wonderful Trans attempted their own version of IDW Drift known as Ronin, and I think he looks even better, far more accurate in terms of proportions. I do think that he's just a little bit weedy in some places, but at the same time, Drift is a kind of scrawny bot. A really nice looking robot here. For any fans of Bayverse Drift, there was the Metagate Haiku. They did both a blue version and a red version, and they actually made him a triple changer, a first for movie Drift. I'll tell you what's really weird is Iron Factory did a Drift. Now that alone is not weird. I would imagine they do an IDW character like Drift. The thing is, they made it based on the movie version. They've never actually done just straight up IDW Drift, which feels like the most Iron Factory thing ever. Hey guys, this is Ron Bondajon in the editing bay. As I was gathering photos, I found out that apparently one of Iron Factory's first releases was a 2-pack that had Drift and Deadlock. It's really hard to get these guys now, which is the same with all early Iron Factory pieces, but they exist. Of course, when people talk about third-party Drift now, they're probably talking about the Ocular Max Stray. Mastermind Creations did an Earth mode version Drift, and I love this thing. The car mode is based off the car from Initial D, and when he transforms, which by the way, the transformation's a dream, it looks so good. A wonderful Drift, with a lot of notes taken from All Hail Megatron, but also kind of just the designers having a ton of fun. That's a good collection of third-party reps for a character not from G1. I mean, just compare that to Lockdown or Bulkhead. Drift has cleaned up. I guess that shows just how much the IDW bots resonated with fans. Many of them were able to get a good helping of figures, Windblade, Drift, and Tarn perhaps being kings amongst them. And at the end of the day, I'm happy. I'm glad that there's so many options for this character. But now, let's get back to official waters in 2015. Prime 1 Studio did a 750-piece limited run of the Museum Masterline Drift, a very nice looking statue. 2015 was also when Drift would make their debut appearance on the small screen. In Robots in Disguise 2015, Drift, alongside his 2 Minicon students, were first introduced as proper traveling Ronin, attempting to gather Decepticons in a post-war universe. We soon found out that they were at one point Decepticon mercenaries, but Drift had taken on a code of honor, and this was his form of atonement, searching out the last remnants of the faction he once fought under. Drift here felt a lot more certain of himself. He was a lot more confident than IDW Drift, and perhaps that's why he had these students around. This felt like a Drift towards the end of his life, one who knew exactly what he was, but also who he was now, and he was no longer chained by his past. He had found peace, and used that to motivate him further. The Deluxe Drift was one of the first times I think RID really nailed a figure. The articulation is great, and I adore the proportions here. Drift looks far bulkier than almost any other version of him, but you can see that we finally come full circle. We went from having Japanese inspiration, to having more and more samurai motifs, to finally having a Transformer that still felt like a Transformer, wearing samurai armor. His car mode is just great as well. I love that Drift just always changes color, it works for him. The orange is dreamy and a great color for a great version of this character. I also really like the Takara Tomy version, but truth be told, I like the darker orange more. The one-step changer of RID Drift is completely fine. There's nothing really stand out about him, I'm afraid. Hey, at least the Takara Tomy version looks nice. The big gimmick toy for RID Drift had to be the Minicon Deployer. Even though he is a very limited action figure in his own right, he's actually able to shoot out the Minicons he comes with. The Takara Tomy version actually had more articulation and better painting, overall just making him a nicer looking Drift. There was a 3-step changer Drift, but funnily enough, you'd be able to get an off-color version of him before his usual colors. Blizzard Strike Drift is really nice looking. That said, he looks a little bit more like Barricade to my eye. We of course got a version in the proper orange, and I gotta say, for a 3-step changer, the proportions are really solid here. Of course, again, the Takara Tomy version looks much better. To bring an end to 2015, you'd be able to get the Tiny Titans Drift. This was just a tiny minifigure in a blind pack. 2016 would be an insane year for Drift. Let's start off with the fact that you'd be able to get a second Tiny Titan version of him. Dicky Toys did a version of Drift's vehicle mode, very similar to a Hot Wheels. We would get the Legion class Drift, which again is very nice, especially for the size class. In Takara Tomy markets, you would get him in a 2-pack alongside Clampdown, and you'd be able to get him in the Blizzard Strike Autobot Drift pack, once again sporting those more strong army colors. Blizzard Strike was here to stay, baby, because we could also get a repaint of the Minicon Deployer Drift in the colors. Of course, we already repainted the rest of his molds, so why not also make the Warrior class Blizzard Strike? And actually, I like this one the most. They got rid of all the white, and just having Drift be this double shade blue, it's a good look. Later on that year, they did Alpine Strike Drift, but this is clearly Drift more in his IDW colors. But why don't we speak about IDW Drift real quick? Because in 2016, we get one of our only toy versions of Deadlock. This is a repaint of the Generations Blur with Drift's head, which means that he also comes with Blur's guns. I really enjoy this toy. I think it's a great looking rendition of Deadlock, and it means that we're able to have one of the most crucial pieces of Drift's identity, the fact that he was once a Decepticon in plastic form. That said, the single greatest Drift of 2016 was the Q Transformers Drift. Look at him! Oh my god, they gave him little eyebrows! And he looks like the initial D car. Oh, is this where this comes from? Is this where it came from? Did Octave Max just rip off this dude? Oh, you little chunker, you little cutesy. Man, I love the Q Transformers. I wish I could get these guys. 2017 would be another bumper year for Drift. Starting off small, there was the tiny turbo changer of Drift. I like it. Good, solid little guy. Turbo changer Drift is actually really impressive from an engineering standpoint. I like the fact that he flips out so much. Allspark Tech Drift was nice and chunky. Legion class Drift is almost nice and chunky, but what's up with those legs, man? What the hell happened here? Turbo Change Drift was just the original Age of Extinction one-step changer. They didn't even make him red. The most interesting of the Last Night Drifts, though, was the Premier Edition Drift. This is a heavy retool of the Age of Extinction Drift that flipped the front of the car to being the back and the back to being the front, which gives Drift a more dynamic robot mode that is more accurate and more well-proportioned. The articulation's even better. Even though I still prefer the Age of Extinction Drift more for nostalgia than anything else, this is really impressive. Simba Boy did a very small robot figurine. They also did a die-cast car Drift. Popping back over to Robots in Disguise, there would be a reissue of the Blizzard Strike Autobot Drift. There was a new mold for a one-step changer Drift that was actually very similar to the Age of Extinction one-step changer. Legion class Drift got a reissue. Listen, I don't know if this counts, but if you got the Ultra B Team Combiner, that sword is Drift. Dicky Toys re-released their Hot Wheels Drift. In fact, forget just one reissue, they did a 2-pack with another Drift toy car, but also a little robot mode this time. And then they did a 5-pack, and an 8-pack, and an 11-pack. Look, we gotta keep pumping out the toys. The kids can't question why we're desecrating corpses. To bring 2017 to a close, Flame Toys did the Kurokar Curry Drift. And this is just incredible. I mean, an absolute work of art with die-cast parts, LEDs. This was what put Flame Toys on the map. They announced Drift and Tarn first, and what a wonderful 2 characters to start this entire line off with. One of the most heavily stylized, heavily priced, but also well-loved versions of Drift ever. Just an absolute tour de force of toy engineering. Continuing on into 2018, you'd be able to get the Battle Command Optimus Prime Strongest Directive set. This would get you another 1-step changer drift, this time in the red. There was also a new Tiny Turbo Changer drift, just in case you needed the blue instead of the red. 2019 wound up being a bumper year for Drift, kind of out of nowhere. Starting off with Studio Series, there was the Drift alongside Tops, Terry, and Sharp T. This was the Last Night Premiere Edition Drift with the most screen-accurate deco it ever received, and he even came with the baby Dinobots. Do you guys remember the baby Dinobots? Weren't they so cute? Don't you want to buy the baby Dinobots? Don't you want to share baby Dinobot memes? Come on, please. Please let this be like Grogu. Please let this be like Grogu. Please let this be like Grogu. Oh yeah, there was also the Deluxe Class Drift. This was helicopter mode. I actually really like this toy. It's a retool of Dropkick, but you would never guess it. This is honestly such a better toy. I really do enjoy this one. Prime 1 showed back up and was like, "Aw man, we got Museum Masterline Drift, but now he's red." Then Flame Toys rolled up and they were like, "Aw man, we got the Kurokara Curry Drift, but now he's red." Speaking of Flame Toys, they also did the Fur-Eye model kit of Drift this year, and it was incredible, just like all their model kits. An incredibly well-engineered model kit that is more than adequate to put to any IDW shelf. 2019 was also when Drift appeared in Cyberverse. The first toy you could get of Drift in Cyberverse was of Deadlock, which is really fitting the more you think about it. The strangest thing is, he does have Drift's general demeanor, but he has the Decepticon Deadlock eyes, which would be incorrect for the show unless you watch to the episode in which he betrayed Rodimus, in which it's clear that's what this is a toy of. That said, if you wanted a more traditional Drift, you'd be able to get one in the very next wave. Tiny Turbo Changer Drift was also very, very cute. Drift took a couple of years off after that, only showing up again in 2021 where we got the Shattered Glass version of the Fur-Eye model kit. In 2023, eHobby did a Rubber Strap series version of Drift, and that is just an adorable keychain. You could also get Deadlock this way. In 2024, we had our most recent version of Drift in toy form, that being the Hot Wheels version, just his auto mode from Age of Extinction, but a nice way to end off the video. And that's it. Drift honestly shocks me in some ways. He's not had that many versions when you think about it. IDW, Robots in Disguise, Cyberverse, movie. And he's had a ton of toys, but there's not been a consistent characteristic to him. I mean, most of them involve the backstory of being a former Decepticon, but even though that's part of the backstory for the movie version, it never comes up. You never really get to engage with it in Robots in Disguise either. I find a certain sadness in the fact that in IDW, the fact that Drift felt like he lacked an identity was so core to him, and yet you look at every other version of the guy, and it feels the same. They don't have a core identity. They each have a Japanese motif and one former name. I kind of hate the fact that Drift is somewhat right in IDW. He's never been able to cement himself as who he is. To people like Michael Bay, he's a stereotype. To people like Robots in Disguise creators, he's a great mentor figure. Even Cyberverse, they used him more as a way to have a red herring for the audience, people who already knew who Drift was. But I feel like most people only see Drift as former Decepticon, samurai vibes, cool toy. I'll admit, I'm someone who has a great deal of struggle when it comes to just feeling like I know who I am. There's a lot of times where I see my reflection and I'm kind of surprised by what I see. And it's not because I have a mental picture of myself, it's more just sometimes I don't really feel like I'm with it, you know? And I don't know if that's a common feeling. I have to assume it is, but you just don't really feel real sometimes. That's a big reason why I like Drift, is I understood where he was coming from. I understood running yourself ragged, going from one personality to the next just because you don't really know which personality you have is the real you. Where does the need to please people end and the person who you actually are begin? I like Drift a lot, but I feel like so many versions of Drift just boil him down to the most, dare I say, weakest parts of his personality. Oh, he's a samurai. Oh, he has swords. Oh, he speaks in haikus. I like the idea of a Decepticon turned Autobot, and their struggle isn't that they're too violent, their struggle isn't that they're on a revenge quest, their struggle is they don't know who they are anymore. They've lost a central pillar of their identity, and now nothing really makes sense. I think it was brilliant, the way they wrote Drift in IDW. And I like other versions of him too, but Drift is one of the few Autobots where it felt like I related to him more in terms of the humanity, as opposed to just liking him because he was a big dumb robot. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Drift? And is there a Drift you're trying to track down right now? Now, we have a lot of characters to go over, but we're going to hit each and every one of them before too long, you have my word. And alongside that, I'm on Patreon now. For $1, you'd be able to join my Discord server, Moonbase1. For $5, you could watch videos early or download any video I've ever made. And for $10, you'd be able to make direct video requests to me. That is, of course, how this video got made, as Silvershot made a Patreon request. Thank you again very much for supporting me there. And guys, I don't really know where we're going next. I have quite a few Patreon requests I still need to fulfill, like Jetstorm and Prowl. But there's also a big part of me that would like to go back to doing the tier videos. Specifically, I've had the artwork made for Season 2 Autobots based on how they would be in the office. I want to do that video eventually, but we'll have to chart that course as we go along. In any case, guys, we'll see what we get up to next time.